One, action.
Great. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, November 30th. Welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. The board just returned from executive session and we're here to celebrate our girls varsity volleyball team.
So we have many, or if not the whole team here, and for those who are watching at home, if you can't see them, you could probably hear them because their medals are jingling and ringing and making all sorts of interesting noises. But let's invite up our coach Diane Swerfager to talk a little bit about the team and the journey, and she's going to. What I'd like to say real quick before I turn over to coaches, every year, our fall sports, including volleyball, they start their practices in mid-August in the hot, sweaty gym, and everyone's excited to be there for volleyball, but it's a sign that school is starting, so there's all these crazy emotions. And every year I'd walk into the gym and watch them practice, and I'd grab coach and I'd say, "Okay, coach, what's the outlook?" And every year, oh, Mr. Huckray, we're rebuilding. We're just rebuilding. We lost all this talent. We got young kids, and I just don't know. Every year is a rebuilding year, and every year is a rebuilding year. This year and last year, the girls who were runners up, and we will rebuild this program every year, coach, because this success was outstanding. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I have Coach Bertolini with me here today and Coach Augusta, former players. And as you know, Coach is tenured here at the high school physical education, but it gives us great honor to be here tonight and celebrate really the community and the community spirit that we experienced all season. If you came into the gym and watched us play, which I appreciate those of you who did and had the time, the loudness and the cheering, and we kept them under control. I appreciated all of the enthusiasm from your peers and the wicked cheers that were coming, just howling down from above, standing up and, one more point. Amaya, on fire, and all these things. I could have you hear all the different clean, very fun and exciting cheers the girls came up with, but that's their spirit. And needless to say, from the beginning, and really was since they were freshmen and sophomores, we started this excitement and celebration of who they are individually and as a group, and they came up with these fun cheers. But it's all about the spirit off the court as well as on the court, and every child here has a role. And the first thing is their academics, and we pride ourselves on being scholar athletes because we know that if you're not playing, especially in our program. They're also, thank you to their parents, healthy eaters, physically fit, which we know is really important to our lives in general, not just for our healthy heart, but also for our minds. And we encourage that throughout the community. And then giving back to the community as they fundraise and donate money back to various organizations, volunteering their time, participating, in their churches or synagogues or in their religion, being great family members as well. And thanking their parents every day for taking good care of them. And I'm sure your rooms are spotless because you appreciate your parents so much. But needless to say, your coaches here, our staff, every staff member in this community, whether it was elementary school, middle school, high school, has played a part in your success as young children. Because if you have a strong family and you have a strong school and education, they come together as one. And we hope that we have produced, and I know that I have been honored to see, especially the seniors and 5 of them that are here, grow up to be such caring and nurturing young ladies. We run volleyball clinics for our elementary kids, K through 7th grade, and they come up. We try and do this 3 or 4 times, not to mention just in the spring, also on Saturday, when we do a lot of sports here. And we enjoy. I do it on purpose because then I get to watch them in action. So they think we're doing, oh, this is so good. I'm like, no, this is for me. I want to see what you guys can do. And they take the time and they're patient. And we have really little kids that come in like they're 5 years old and they have special balls. So we modify it just to teach them how this thing can float in the air and you can do some fun things with it. And we develop more and more talent at the modified level with Coach Rudner, who's also a former player. And Coach Augusta took the JV this year. When Coach Bertolini came up to be my assistant. So it evolves. It's a special program, and you've had older sisters who worked with you when you were younger and how you give back. And we're always trying to remind them about the community spirit and how you give back and through sports. I mean, who'd have thought volleyball would be so cool and so fun, and all this noise that you're making and produce, we don't have space in the showcases here, thanks to you. So they have gone through a season of 25-0. They are undefeated in league again. We're like 28 years in that. Then there's, Tata. And then sectionals, it's their 17th sectional win, undefeated again. And then regionals, again, 11th, our 11th trip to the Final Four, which we have now won 4 titles. And we have been, I have to do math now, 6 times in the finals that we were finalists, and then 2 times in the Final Four. And you missed a spot, keep shining that right there. The newspaper, Eugene, from the Journal News said to me, "Do you know that you have been unscored upon?" And I thought, "Oh, I don't keep count, but that's pretty cool." So of course, now I go back and I start to, they won 71 sets and lost 2. 1 in regionals, and it's 3-0. So you play sets to 25 points, you have to win by 2. They made it exciting in sectionals, winning 30-28. We were calm. But then we lost 1 set in regionals. We won 3-1, and then we lost our first set in the Final Four, which is with a little excitement. And we got our acts together in the second set against a very good team. We were seeded 1. I kept telling you we were seeded 2 on purpose. We were seeded 1. So I had, all right, I took a fly to put the pressure on West Hill, and yeah, you guys Google stuff anyway, so I knew I would figure it out. So we were seeded 1, and we split with this other team who was seeded 2. Big whoop, you flip-flop. But at 12:16, I called a timeout. Mr. Baker reminded me that was a turning pivotal point. I was like, no, I just had it that they were playing so poorly at 2016. And I kneeled down to them and I looked up and I said, "Who are you representing? Who are you? You're representing yourself. You're representing your family. You're representing your school district, your entire community, and me. And that is not how we play. And that is not how you've been trained. So smile, crack a joke, do something silly. And if you're looking at Amaya, don't look at her right now because her beady eyes would probably burn you. And go out there and have some fun." And they started to giggle, and you saw their whole faces of, go, "Yeah, we've been doing this all season." So the belief in themselves, whether you're on the court or off the court, was really magical to see your emotions and how you came together. I've been telling them they've been a part of my family forever, especially when I yell at them. Oh, Teresa comes in my door and says, "Oh yeah, she does that worse at home. Don't worry about it. You're fine." And they just have this resiliency to stand up and be better every time they come in the gym. And yeah, we've had some family concerns, and we've had sicknesses, and we've had boyfriendish, no boyfriends, but we've had things that we have to get over and move forwards. And I think their sense of humor has been a big part of it, their joy and who they are and how they work well together. And I'm hoping that you spread that with your other peers in the school district, because it's important for you to be together as a community. When things get tough, the tough get tougher. And that's what they did. So after we split, they came back, they were 5-1. We jumped into the finals. We beat the team 25-9, which is unheard of. We have this little thing. If you haven't seen my interview with the 5th graders at Ernest Woods, we talked about Carvel and how important Carvel is to us, even as grown-ups. So when they defeat a team 10 points or less, we go out rice. A little bit before dinner, but doesn't spoil the meal too much. We have fun. We're silly, but they're serious at the same time. They know that this was really important. They set goals. They feed off their coaches. They know when to be serious. They know when to support each other. They know when to be silly. And I appreciate your maturity throughout the season, because it really takes a lot of sacrifice, not just from you, but for the people who are behind you and supported you. That's your parents and your family. So I thank all of you. I thank you. I thank you. And I thank you, of course, and also my family and all of you for having us here tonight. And these are beautiful plaques that will be on display. I am working on a fabulous picture, as you saw in the showcase with the other state championships. And all your names will be on there forever and ever and ever and ever. So you can bring your grandkids back. show them what a special time this was. So we will be lighting the tree at the Montrose Fire Department on Friday. On January 24th, we will visit the town of Portland and thank them very much for showcasing you and honoring you, and anybody else who steps up will be visiting and giving back and running clinics and do what we do best is share who you are, because you make the world a better place. Any questions? Are we clear? Good job. I'm so proud of you guys, really. Thank you. And thank you very much for your time and sharing this special time with us. Oh my gosh, how could I forget the first responders? So from Ansville Circle, Coach was on the phone with Tommy Gillio, and the bus met 10 responders in front of us, first responders, and 10 behind us. And I felt so bad because I think people must have thought there was some explosion at any point or something with the noise and the sirens. And on 7:30 at night when we came home, it was a really wonderful feeling, and my ears are still ringing from the screaming that was going on in the bus. But we can't help it but say again, thank you to all the first responders who organized that, and the Westchester County Police also were involved. And we had a little send off, but the escort coming back was mind-blowing, and yeah, it was for you. As someone said, this is for us. I said, yeah, because you did something special for our community, and they are really honoring you and thanking you. So of course, those heroes were honoring our heroes. So thank you to all of them too. It was a great day. It's always a great day to be a sailor, and don't you ever forget that. All right? Clear?
Clear.
Thank you again very much. So I'm going to dismiss them to go do.
Well, one more recognition for you, Coach. Back on September 20th, many of you may know, but some might not, that on September 20th, our coach became the all-time win leader in Section 1 history with her 649th win. And she decided, and the girls decided that wasn't enough. So you just ran through the rest of the season undefeated. So we want to represent you with this plaque, Coach, to share with your staff and the students, because we are among royalty here with our coach, and good coaches happen because of outstanding players. And I do want to commend the parents who are here. I spent the weekend with them in Glens Falls, and for the girls who were playing on the court, it was really interesting because parents had assigned seats and they stood up at certain points and they led cheers, and a couple of parents did laps around the ice rink in between timeouts and in between sets. And then we went out for coffee while you guys had breaks, and it was really incredible. So thank you to the families, to the hundreds, if not thousands of players that you coach, because this recognition doesn't happen by mistake, and we're glad that you're on our team. So we're good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Put that in your head
Yeah. All right, thank you, ladies, for being here, and to the families. It's wonderful to see you. I actually did get to catch a couple of your games, and I have to say that you guys have taken the spirit up a level since I was here playing. These girls do these crazy like handshakes before the game starts. I don't know how you remember it, but the cheers are absolutely amazing. So congratulations. Thanks for being here tonight, and we're really excited to be celebrating you as well. I think Coach said it's time for homework, right? So we'll let you leave before we start our long agenda.
New York State Public High School Scholar Athletes again. So congratulations, like a 93 point something team average. And Mr. Baker, and athletic trainer, man, we can't help it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stayed small. And when the other teens were loud and playing the music, and my kids were sitting asleep. Like I said, it's different. Good night.
Good night. Hey, all right, we're gonna stand for the pledge before we start the meeting.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated? Second? All in favor? Okay. All right, Carmen, we have nobody signed up for
We do not.
non-agenda items? Okay, so we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to pull from the consent agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Have a second? All in favor? I think we have donations that are pulled. Oh boy, can I read them? Entergy is donating $10,000 for active learning spaces within the Hendrick Hudson School District. Over the past 5 years, the district has been committed to providing interactive learning spaces at all 5 of our schools that promote hands-on learning, independent thinking, and collaboration with a particular emphasis on STEM. This will allow us to continue the important initiatives.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there Entergy or Holtec?
Oh. Holtec is donating.
Well, correct. Yes. No, just.
Yeah.
I had a couple questions about it. Joe, so have we earmarked how we're gonna be spending this money? This $10,000, do we have plans for it?
Yeah, so this is the continuation, maybe it was apropos that the document said Entergy. This is a continuation of a project we began with Entergy with active learning spaces. It started in our high school and actually here in the library. Anthony Merlini and his folks have now completely flipped over all of the old furniture in the library to this furniture that came with a partnership we created with a company called Meteor. So throughout the high school, you'll see in half the last number of years seen furniture that promotes active learning spaces, higher engagement for students, flexible seating for teachers, being able to move furniture around to have different levels of engagement in classrooms. That conversation then led to outfitting our libraries, including the high school. And over the summer, the board spent a few days in a retreat at the middle school library. And you remember some of that furniture, which is new to the library, and kids there is part of this overall vision. So when we met with Holtec and they took over for Entergy, there was a number of meetings with their gift giving function, both from Entergy and Holtec. Holtec wanted to continue to give to the extent that they could and wanted to keep the legacy of programs or initiatives we began with Entergy alive. So this $10,000 will continue that work. It will continue to provide furniture in classrooms and at the finish off the middle school library. If you remember, the middle school library, one half is done. The other half still has some of the old computer lab furniture, and then eventually have this vision and concept moved into the 3 library and STEM spaces at the elementary schools.
And how are these decisions made when we go to invest this gift money?
Yeah, well, this particular one started a number of years ago with staff development from teachers and a desire to create a more inviting classroom experience beyond the old furniture that we have. And for a number of years, our boards in the past did not make significant investments in furniture or equipment because those are oftentimes very, very expensive, and we don't receive a lot of state aid on them. So we wanted to use the gift from Entergy and then Holtec to sort of revitalize and renovate some of the spaces like here in the library and then eventually the 3 in the elementary school. So it was a vision that started probably back in 2016.
But not just administrators,
Oh,
teachers.
yeah, no, and we
principals at
had
all.
we had conversations here with the board Because we always try to find different ways to fund initiatives that are either a board interest or that come out of the schools, and one of those is oftentimes furniture. If you can't, you don't want to fund furniture oftentimes out of your general fund. You want to the extent you can, on a capital project, but we haven't had a capital project that significant the last number of years. So it came out of some shared interest from all of those stakeholders.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think there's one more donation. All right, the Hendrick Hudson Community Education Foundation has made a donation of $192 for the purchase of Chromebook cases, styluses, and insurance. This payment will cover insurance for 6 students who either qualify for free reduced lunch or have been identified by their principal as having this need. All right, awesome.
I have one question.
Sure.
Isn't it stylized?
Highlight? Oh, because it's multiple. Correct it.
I'm just asking. We're an educational foundation. We will ask our foundation friends. Okay, that's a good question. Just asking.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah.
Right here. Can I have a motion to approve the donations?
So
Second? All in favor? All right. Now we are at our superintendent's report.
yeah, we're gonna dedicate this time in the agenda for Enrique to give us our first financial update as we prepare for our budget season. This is one of the earliest updates we've provided the board, and it comes from a series of conversations that we've been having with the finance division from the state education department. When Indian Point was going through the process of closing, and we were looking at the enormous financial situation we believe we were facing, one of our many advocacy initiatives was to work directly with the state education department division of budget, so that we understood what, if any, increase in state aid we would receive. So over the last couple of years, Enrique and I have had many conversations with the folks up there. There was a conversation most recently a couple of weeks ago where they provided us with a glimpse into what they believe to be our initial state aid run. So we're thankful for that partnership and relationship we built. And Enrique is going to give a quick update on what we've learned. And important to underscore that these are estimates, and this is really the beginning of the process. For those who have been around watching our budget process for a while, these numbers do change because they're subject to political influence and negotiations in Albany, but this is a good place to start because this is the best information we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Enrique.
Thank you. As Joe said, as soon as we knew that Indian Point was closing, we went to Albany several times. Actually, the last time that we were there, people were starting to mask, and it was a complete mess. But all that paid dividends, because definitely I was positively surprised last week when we had our meeting with state aid, because state aid is increasing more than I thought. I was always conservative. I worked with Questar from in Albany to get an idea of how much our state aid will increase. For the first time, it increased more than we thought, not the other way around. So obviously the main reason for the increase is the increase in the wealth ratio. For building aid, the increase is going from 15.9 to 32.3. And that is a reason why we didn't want to do a long-term bond until we get the increased rate. That means that now, instead of getting 50% of every payment that we have to make for the bond that is interest, we're going to get 42%. Sean, the person from state aid, said that next year it might jump another 10 to 15%. So, but for next year, Building gate will increase to 32% and transportation aid the same. Now, we also have increasing foundation aid. Foundation aid is the main part of our state aid. There are three main reasons. The first reason is that if you remember back in 2010 during the financial crisis, the state reduced foundation aid from school districts because they didn't have the money. So finally this year they are in the second phase of restoring what they took back in 2010. So that's one of the reasons why foundation aid is going up. The second one is because of inflation. So usually foundation aid would go up between 0.5% and 1%. Now it went up the portion of inflation by 7 to 8%. And obviously our wealth ratio. So the total amount we're going to see in the next page is around 42% increase in state aid, but we'll get there. Unfortunately, we also will be penalized because last year the elementary schools only had 179 days of school, and by law we need to have at least 180. Next, please. So here you have the main parts of our state aid. As you can see, foundation aid is going up by about $3 million. That represents about 50% increase. High tax aid, that's because of our high taxes, so they help us a little bit with our taxes. Then UPK, it's going up from 280 to 394. So hopefully next year we won't have to, the general fund won't have to subsidize the program. Private access and public access is basically special ed. BOCES is a component of everything that we spend with BOCES. And then you have the per pupil state aid, hardware, library, software, textbooks, and then you have building aid and transportation aid. So here you can see that this year we're getting $9.2 million. Next year we're going to get 13.1. Next, please. In my projections, I was projecting up until last week about $10 million in state aid. So if this continues, if you remember, I always said that we were expecting tax levy increases of about between 4.5% and 5.5%. If this trend continues, I think that we're going to be in the 3.5% increases. We have $10 million that we've been saving for this rainy day. We have the cessation fund, and we're having an additional state aid. So for the first time in 4 years since the announcement, I feel comfortable that we're in a good financial position. Any questions?
I'll give you a Moody's A rating for that.
Thank you, but it's the whole staff, it's everyone, it's been hardworking, it's been nights of thinking, how can we do it, but we're not as good as a volleyball team, but we try.
I do have one question.
Sure.
So on the first slide where you have the state aid update, you say increase in wealth ratio. I think it's a decrease in the wealth ratio, which.
Well, yeah,
I
I didn't know to say that, but it's a decrease in the wealth ratio that increases the wealth ratio, It increases the
Wealth ratio funding,
fund,
right?
yes.
So I think that just need to add that last word,
Yes.
increase in wealth ratio funding.
It's like
Just to
I'm
make
not
sure
going to
people are
put
clear.
decrease of wealth ratio for,
Right.
yeah, but you're right. It's a decrease of wealth, so prior to this increase, the way the state calculates the wealth ratio of a district is, if a district is 1, is the average of all the districts of the state. If you're below 1, then you start getting a lot more because you're below the average. Obviously, districts in Westchester and Long Island are the highest. We were at 1.6, meaning we're 60% richer, wealthier, whatever you want to call it, from the average of the state of New York.
But not anymore after we lost the.
That's what I'm saying,
funding.
up until last year. When they sent everything, they are going to show us that now instead of being at 1.6, we might be at 1.3, I don't know.
But this funding came sooner than we expected.
No,
Didn't
3
it?
years. Exactly
Okay, so this is
3
the third
years since the closing of the first reactor.
Feels like yesterday. Yeah, okay,
So next year, we should expect more.
that's great.
I have a question. I have a
Wait,
couple.
hold on one second, Ally, is it okay, Ally?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just wanted someone, Joe, Margaret, to speak about the penalty, how we missed a day of school last year.
Yeah, this is interesting. We have our BOCES superintendent looking into this on behalf of a number of districts. During the pandemic, the state created basically a waiver process for all of the schools that were closed to the pandemic or because of pandemic related issues. And the state allowed no penalty for instructional days if you met an hourly, a minimum number of hours. And it looks like what happened last year was at the elementary level that the elementary parent teacher conferences in April is what put us below the 180-day threshold. However, over the course of the academic year, we more than exceeded the minimum number of hours of instruction. So we had been pointing to the state to say, wait a minute, under the waiver, we met the hours of instruction. And the state is saying, well, under the whatever archaic system they have, you didn't meet the 180 days. So this wasn't that all schools did not meet the 180 days. Right now, we're looking at the pre-elementaries, and it looks like we've pinpointed it to the elementary parent-teacher conference from 22. So I met with our BOCES superintendent to basically say this is our situation. And he said, well, you're not the only one, and the COVID related waivers should account for that. The problem is, Enrique accounted for this penalty because if the state were to correct this, or I'm hopeful when the state corrects this, they don't have to replenish the money as quickly as they take it away. Oftentimes it's a waiting game to get that money back. So we wanted to make sure we accounted it because that's worst case scenario. But in terms of instructional, in terms of access to instruction, our elementary kids may have only come to school 179 days, but they more than exceeded the minimal instructional hours. So that's sort of the policy debate right now that our BOCES superintendent is going to wage on our behalf.
Thank you. Can I ask a question of just about similar, how do we get notified that that's a problem? Is that something that we have to submit a form that says we only run?
Yeah, is it the ST3?
The way it happens, Erica, is like I mentioned a couple of board meetings ago. In August, September, we need to send absolutely everything, every number that we did, the general fund, everything to the state. The state comes back and tells you that there's problems with some of your numbers, and they tell you why. They say there's a problem. If it's true, correct it, or if it's right, tell me why. obviously, it speed up the fact that it was not 180 days. And Carmen sent us an email to say exactly why, and the state at this point said, no, I'm not accepting. So that's what I'm saying. We're still fighting for it, but at this point, they still are saying no. We didn't have enough number of days.
And an example of this, and thanks for reminding me, Rick, an example of this is that last year, the high school did not have 180 days because the first 2 days of school, they were closed because we had the hurricane or lightning storm or what have you. So when the state came back, they came back with a number of flags for us to consider. And we had said to the state in the first round, the school was closed. Here's all the evidence that the school was closed and the reasons why. And whoever was working on the state's behalf of Carmen said, no, that's not good enough. And what I actually had in my email was a email communication I had back and forth with the Commissioner of Education at that time. We printed it out, gave it to Carmen. She sent it to the state and said, oh, okay, the commissioner knew about it. So as bureaucratic as our system is, sometimes it also relies on an email, but there is an opportunity. There's a data dump that goes to the state and an opportunity to sort of reconcile some of these. Right now, we're trying to reconcile this $22,000, and it's not just us, because there were a lot of schools in our situation that were closed for any number of reasons or didn't have the instructional days, but more than exceeded the instructional contact hours.
Yeah. So how do we compare? What are other districts seeing as far as increasing financial state aid?
Yes.
I mean, this is great, but I just want to know, are we getting everything we can?
That's why I wanted to divide this in foundation aid. Most of the districts are getting an increase because, again, back in 2010, they took foundation aid from all the school districts in the state of New York, and now they are restoring it. So most of the districts are getting, and the poorer the district, the more they are getting, because they are the ones that usually get a lot more in foundation aid. What I'd say it goes between, in foundation aid, between 10 and 40%, and we got a lot more because of the wealth ratio part of the equation.
Okay.
So, quick question on this 180 days, how do we just make sure that this doesn't happen again? Like, can we put a math teacher on this and have them count how many days?
Oh, well, we do, well, when we approve our school calendar, we actually have the give back. So if we use too many snow days, what vacation days we have to take back. In this case, it really was around the COVID related waivers, because we didn't have anywhere near 180 contact days the year before, because we were open and closed and those sort of things. So our research found that had we not applied for the waiver, which we believe would have kept us fine, the alternative would have been to not have the parent-teacher conferences in April. So knowing that, we may need to make that call, depending on the number of snow days we have, and some of those other things. For example, I don't think the COVID related, I don't know if the COVID waiver is in effect this year. We don't believe so, but if we would ever get close again, that's, well, you get back days, so you pull from April vacation, which we had to do a number of years ago.
Yeah.
But right now, the April parent-teacher conference day is the day that's not accounted for. You may have to consider that going forward, or to make that virtual or after school or what have you. But this really is a situation of the COVID waiver was about the building being open but not sacrificing instructional time. So that's our claim, and I'm sorry.
So this year, we went to half days for the parent teacher.
Yeah,
conference.
okay, so there you go. Okay, so
Won't
happens.
be a full day, 2
Okay.
half days. Yeah.
But what about to leave?
Oh, that was my question.
Well, and that's another matter. So Juneteenth became a federal holiday after a lot
I'm
of.
sorry, Margaret, but I'm not American.
After the boards of education approved their school calendar for the following year, then Juneteenth became a federal holiday. So districts had to make adjustments there. So some of the other districts looking for the waiver are ones that recognize Juneteenth as a federal holiday and didn't think they're 180 days as well. So this isn't unique to us. It's not even unique to COVID, but that was one of the big considerations was school districts were pushing, well, I shouldn't say pushing back, but saying we're going to need some more leniency with these mandates if you just added another federal holiday, especially in June, to disrupt instruction for regions or individuals.
But going forward, we'll stay on the conservative side just to make sure we hit the minimum days.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons in our school calendar, and we're starting to build that now for the 23-24 school year. We identify for families that if we use too many snow days where we pull in January or where we pull in April on spring break.
So I have two things. One, I asked for Enrique and I have two questions for this conversation. What is the minimum number of hours a year that we're supposed to?
990 in elementary.
And how many did we do?
We're always over for elementary. It's secondary that comes the closest. And I think it's 9 for secondary.
And we were over 990 this year, but how much? I'm just,
We have
can
to-
give it to you tomorrow. I
yeah,
don't have-
okay. And then my other question is, why are we pinning it, if Juneteenth was the first year that we recognized it was in 2022, why are we pinning it to a conference and not accounting for Juneteenth as the failure? That sounds like.
I'm not accounting it to Juneteenth. I'm saying other districts that may not.
You said it's because of the teacher. I'm not challenging you, I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You had indicated that we believe that that the issue came down to us having a teacher conference in April, but we always have a teacher conference in April, right? So it sounds like it's Juneteenth that was new in 2022, but how long did we know June? I feel like Juneteenth has been sort of a discussion for a while that it was going to be a federal holiday. So I just a little weird just that we gave a snow day back in 2022 and then didn't account for Juneteenth.
I'd have to look at when that became a federal holiday and at what point our calendar was approved.
Okay, yeah,
According to the state, in one of the responses was they've been sending to curriculum and instruction over 3 years leeway to let them know that Juneteenth is for the 2022 was going to be a national holiday. So
and then thank you. And then my other question is, you indicated the building aid went up to 32%, and then there's talk that we may get 10 or 15% more next year. Is that 10 or 15% more as a percentage of 32%? Or does that mean we're going to go to 45 or 50%?
what he told us is that the increased money because of the decrease of wealth ratio for next year is due to the first reduction of pilot payment. So he thinks that next year, if the second reduction will be applied, and therefore the wealth ratio will go down, and therefore more money will come to us.
So like 35 to 37% next year.
I'm hoping more.
Okay,
I'm hoping about 40, but
yeah, thank you.
Can I just ask one question? So going forward, though, the cessation fund is not indefinite. Correct. So as this starts to increase and the cessation fund starts to decrease, this will make up for some of that loss on the cessation fund and keep us even. Is that the idea, or will eventually, what will happen over time?
well, please go to the last slide.
Yeah.
You can see in the last slide, like I always said, we have $20 million on a prime fund balance. We have the cessation fund. and we have increased state aid. So my idea is to use fund balance more those years that we get less cessation fund to keep the tax levy increases at about the same level. And if you can see here, the tax levy increases will go up between 3.5 and close to 4%. So that's my idea.
But there will eventually be a point where the cessation fund is done and the fund balance is done. Right?
It ends in 28, 29.
No.
Or in 28,
Yes, yes.
I just want to make sure we're accounting for that.
It is.
We're going to 2030, 2031.
Yeah.
By 2030, 2031, we still, I'm expecting to have about $15 to $20 million in fund balance. So going after 2030, 31, we're still going to continue subsidizing the tax levy at 3.5, and about 4 or 5 years later, then we'll be able to be back, the 3.5 instead of 2% over 15 years
Yeah,
will make up that difference.
right. Yeah, I mean, eventually the ride is done, right?
Exactly,
Is the
that's what
point
I'm
I'm
saying.
trying to make.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that there will be a point because the cessation fund's not indefinite and the fund balance is not indefinite. So
Well,
this is
I
a
agree.
really long-term funding model, but there will be a point where
Corey,
that.
on this sheet, it shows the cessation fund is $0 for the 27-28 school year.
Right.
So he's accounting for the cessation fund's termination.
Yeah, which I can see that up there, but then the fund balance is also, our fund balance is gonna whittle down. Yeah, it will be, but then what we're not seeing is, so when I look at the fund balance,
That's how much he's putting in from the fund balance.
right? So what
Yeah,
happens
so
after
you see the
2030?
fund balance that's going down from 6.7 to.
Right, and then we're down to 4 million,
1.5.
right, at 3031, but eventually that balance, maybe it's 4 years down the road, is gonna go down to zero at some point.
Well, whoever is here about them, hopefully kick off and bring it zero.
Maximum We're allowed to have, we're allowed to go through that maximum now.
4%?
It is 4%,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
But again, that's why I don't have it here, but under my projections in 3031, we still are going to have about $15 to $20 million in fund balance.
Okay,
What I'm assuming is that any other regular school, they are capped at 2% tax rate.
right.
We are at 1.5, we're close to 50% higher tax levy than everyone else. Just to say 30%. So that 30% over 15 years will, in 15 years, will get the district to be at 2% like any other district,
Okay,
but it takes 15 years.
that, and that's what I'm looking at, so it's
I mean,
well
it's
beyond
not
this
like-
spreadsheet.
It's not like in 2022 it will jump to 10% because we need $4.5 million extra. We have.
Okay, good. I'm just looking
Yeah,
far
that's what,
down the
but that's
road,
what I'm
right?
saying.
Beyond
That's
this
what I'm
spreadsheet.
saying.
All right, I have a,
Thank you.
I know we have a lot to cover, but I'm just looking at the pre-K grants, which increased 40%. So the 280,000 we're receiving this year includes the kids we have in-house and the ones we have out.
No, that's just state funding. So
Okay.
there are two funding sources. We used, sorry, I put out-
Not for next year. For next year, there's only one funding source.
This is state aid.
Yes, I'm just explaining to Erica what is happening this year. So this year, we have two funding streams, federal and state. We used state funding. We did leave some money on the table out of the other grant because we didn't have a place for kids to go. So we maxed the two sections that we were given, and a Rising Star was able to take 17 more. But we had more seats. We just didn't have the places to put them. It would appear that that will happen again.
That's why I'm asking.
Next year, yes.
Next year, can we, with more money, can we have more children in-house?
If you tell me yes.
No, but is that
You can have, the rules are 17 children
in a room?
with a teacher and a teaching assistant. If you go over that number, even by one, I need a second teaching assistant for that to happen. I wouldn't recommend that anyway, because they're little and they need a lot of attention. So what I don't know here, and I don't know if Enrique knows the answer to this and would like to share it, is, and this is the question Joe and I have every year. Is it the same funding, which means it's $5,400 per seat, and they tell you that I then have 73 seats? Or, as we've been asking them, please increase the per seat reimbursement. And we were hoping that that's what they were going to do last
We
year,
don't
but
know,
they
and
did
we don't
not.
know.
And I don't know yet if they revealed that in the new funding, so.
No, that was one of the initiatives that NISBA took out. One of the advocacy initiatives was two things regarding pre-K. One, more money, and two, a more relevant per pupil expenditure based on your cost of living, basically where you are, right? Right now, it's $5,400 a kid. Doesn't matter where you are in the state.
Yeah.
So $5,400 a kid in the Adirondacks goes further. So we have to wait to see if some of that red tape has been alleviated. Otherwise, more money is great on this chart, but it may not result in more butts and seats without a district share. So
Just
that's
to
what we.
compare this current year that we're in to where we are right now. We were at a similar place last year. And then if you remember, we did the lottery and then we went out again because we got a second boost in the federal money. So I don't know what that will look like, but again, we clearly have some decisions to make about whether or not we want to stay at 2, whether we want to increase it to 3. We always have the collaboration requirement, so we still have to put out the RFP and begin that process again. It doesn't guarantee the current collaborator that they have, the rights to that opportunity. They have to begin again to respond to that.
So, go ahead. Nope.
I just have a quick question. It does the 179 days impact teacher contracts since they sign a contract every September to teach 180 days? Like, does that impact them at all?
I don't believe so. I don't think we've.
No, we have to pay them as 100, and actually teachers have to be here 182 days.
What with the conferences?
Yeah, no, if it's our fault, why should they get paid?
I was just making sure that they weren't going to be penalized.
So,
So my question is PK related. We get 180 now, which comes out to 5,300 kids on $5,300 a kid or whatever the number is, right? So what does the 280 represent? Because this says we have 280 now and it's going to 394.
That's what they gave us this year.
So it's 180 for in-house and we have 100 for.
no. The way it works is we have to.
We get 180,000 for in-house
No,
with
we-
PK, right?
I don't, is this on? I don't know, it's hard to hear yourself. I don't know the exact number, Jeremy, I can find out for you, but there were 2 funding sources, state and federal. So one was, I think, 197 and change. I can get the numbers. for
But
you.
this is the state, so federal.
Yes.
Here's what I'm trying to understand, ready? We have 34 kids, right? And it's 50 in our UPK program in-house.
Right.
So I'm just trying to understand why this says 280,000 now from the state, forget the secondary funding source.
Right.
Is the other 100,000 related to the external UPK program? Because we only get, we have in-house there, so I want to understand how this breaks down, because if it's gonna go to 394, it's $114,000 additional expense.
Right.
Assuming it doesn't increase per seat.
Right.
What, that means that we just have another opportunity to pay for more kids to go out of district or to put in another classroom here, but we'd only be getting then 100,000 addition. So I'm trying to understand what 280 represents. Is it 100 to the external source and 180 internal?
It simply at this moment represents 52 seats, for argument's sake. Divide 280 by 5,400. That's how many seats I have funding for right this minute.
Okay.
How I arrive at that seating, for argument's sake, if we stayed status quo, we have 34 seats at Frank G. So I can throw 20 seats out to the community if they can pick that up.
Got it. Thank you.
think the 180 was increased last year. I think the 180 is what we originally
Right.
came out with, and it did go up. I'm not saying it's 280, but it did go up.
But it, and that's what allowed us to go to the external source. It still was the same $5,400 a kid.
Yes,
In
that
Frenchie,
hasn't
we never,
changed.
and
Right.
the difference was we didn't have to give the 10% back. That was the only thing different from the presentation, right?
The cost per seat remains the same, and that's what we'd like to see change.
Right. Yeah, because it costs money costs more than $5,400 for us to have a UPK kid in a class. We're subsidizing that in our.
Other questions for you?
This is great news all the way around.
Our So our first presentation is around our demographic and enrollment overview. So when we were discussing as a board last spring and into the summer about the potential of a capital improvement project, a good thing to always do is to have an updated demographic and enrollment report. Oftentimes, when you present a capital project to the state education department and you're renovating buildings or you're seeking reimbursement to renovate schools or make additions or so on and so forth, one document that the state always asks for is, well, let's see your demographic report. How many kids are you anticipating gaining or losing? Because the state does not want to fund a program or fund a capital project if you're going to be losing children. So Enrique and I met over the summer and said, let's get that done, because sometimes these processes move quickly. And if we end up doing a capital project and we don't have this information with us, we don't want to delay the process of a capital project by then having to do a demographic study. So we partnered with Western Suffolk BOCES, obviously on Long Island. They have an entire division around school planning and research. So with us on Long Island by Zoom is Barbara Graziano. She coordinates this office for Western Suffolk BOCES. And for those who have read the presentation or looked ahead, their BOCES works with many districts across New York State, particularly in the Hudson Valley. So with that, I'll give Greg a moment to bring Barbara on virtually, and she could walk us through the findings of the demographic study. Barbara, can you hear us? They're unmuted, so she is on the other line. Okay. Waiting for her to start her video, keep asking her to start. Oh, okay. We have the connection, Greg, we just. She's in the meeting. Okay. But we don't. Yeah, Greg, I think Greg was talking about. Oh.
She can hear.
Yeah, I don't need to. Don't have the presentation. Greg, should we have the other groups go first with that? I think if we could switch it. Okay, we'd like to welcome our PTA. We're gonna go to the bullpen here.
Get your presentation up. There we go.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everybody. We are really thrilled to be here this evening and thank you to the school board for the invitation. I've been in the district 15 years and I'm really thrilled to be here on behalf of the PTA presenting this evening. It's a really special event and we don't take it lightly. So thank you. Tonight you're going to be hearing from the Hendrick Hudson High School and the Blue Mountain Middle School PTA and PTSA. We have most of our executive boards here this evening. I'm Rebecca Quigley. I'm the PTA president at the high school. And I'm joined tonight by Ann Malloy and Janine Eichenholz, the co-presidents at Blue Mountain Middle School. And so we're going to be taking you through our activities this year and our initiatives. So as you see on the screen, this is just a list of our executive committees, our officers for this year. Each team works collaboratively together, very well together, and both of our units also work together very well, in touch quite often, making sure that we are keeping the flow moving between each of our schools. So at each level, the PTA has a little bit of a different focus. And what we did was broke down for you how we look at each of our units and how we address the needs of our students and our staff. At the elementary level, as you heard 2 weeks ago, they focus a lot on the kids. What programs can they bring into the school? What can they do to work with the teachers to make sure that the students' experience is one of the best ones they can have? At the middle school, we're a little bit of a transition. Just like for the students, we are also for the PTA, and we are making sure that we are working both with students and with staff to provide the programs that each wants. So at the middle school level, the students have a little bit more of an involvement. We have student government that really takes a lot more responsibility, and other clubs where the kids can get involved and take on leadership roles. And with the PTA, we work to support that in conjunction with the staff. At the high school, it's really much more student driven. The students at the high school level have that independence, they have the knowledge, they have the skills, they have the experience at that point to take a lot of the initiative themselves, and we are there to support them and provide for them as best we can. The special education PTA, or SEPTA, works with all of our schools. And I know that you'll be hearing from them, hopefully at a meeting coming up very soon. They are there to provide support and resources for parents, staff, and the families throughout every level of education, on every spectrum, for the entire spectrum from one end to the other. We work with the SEPTA and with each other to make sure that we're providing a whole well-rounded experience for the students and the teachers.
All right, great, thank you. So I'd like to speak to you all about the high school and our priorities. The biggest thing that we wanted to acknowledge coming out of the last several years was that the kids are desperate for opportunities to spend time together. So we wanted to provide them with those opportunities. Last year, for the first time ever, we did a spring and a winter carnival, absolutely no charge to the kids. The winter carnival was the Friday before the February break, and the spring carnival was in May after AP exams. This was absolutely no charge to the kids. We kept having the kids coming up to us saying, yes, the food was great. We were happy to do it. And it was a fantastic opportunity. We actually, on both occasions, had to kick kids out because we had to turn over the cafeteria to other events. So we're going to be doing those again this year. Another big initiative for the high school this year was homecoming weekend events. We had a lot of discussions with my executive board this summer. We wanted to elevate homecoming and make it something that the entire district could get around, no matter what school or whether you're in the community or still in the school community. And so we worked really hard that if you were a high school student, for $20, you could attend every event at homecoming this year. The football game on Friday night was free, the color run was $15, and the dance was $5. So for $20, you could hit every homecoming event. We certainly had a huge attendance at all of our events. Really thrilled, and we're looking forward to expanding it next year and then continuing this new tradition. We also, one of our priorities was we want to make sure that our events are for all grades at the high school and all students. Previous PTA administration at the high school has been admonished, if I will, for spending heavily on the senior class. And so I'm working hard to rectify that and make sure that all of the grades are included in all of their activities. So last year we ran a note-taking class for freshmen because we thought that they've been stuck home and they really didn't get a chance to proper transition to the high school. And I also included the sophomores in that as well. They were also a COVID class. We also ran a financial class last spring about what to do with your summer job taxes that are taken out of your paychecks. That was really well received. We've also been running for the third year now, our SAT and ACT test prep classes for our 10th and 11th graders. And those have been very popular. In fact, there's one happening this evening. Again, for our 10th and 11th graders. So we've been trying to spread the love so that all of the classes at the high school receive our attention and our financial benefits. As Jenny just said, we have a lot of support of student-run events. And I also want to explain for all of our elementary parents out there who attended the Hunt High School, we loved seeing you, we loved having you. And because we haven't been able to do it for a couple of years, I wanted to explain that it is a student-run event. So, you know, we had some hiccups with the tours and we had some hiccups with the pacing. And that's all projects that we for next year. But that's what PTA has been doing at the high school level, is supporting these student-run events the best we can. And I know we've publicized this on our social media pages, but we had a lot of damaged haunted high school equipment this year, and we brought this up at one of our PTA meetings. We put kind of APB out on social media, and within 1 weekend, we raised over $1,000 to replenish our haunted high school supplies. So we turned that over to Mrs. Pipchinsky at the high school and all the clubs. And for those of you that had attended, you saw how well the high school was decorated. So another way that we've been supporting our students at the high school is that we know that several of the upper classes have had trouble fundraising during COVID. So during our homecoming dance, instead of the PTA taking the profits from the freshmen, we actually approached the senior class, and the senior class, I believe, made almost $700 by the refreshments that they sold at the dance. So we were happy to partner with them and provide them a little extra money for their coffers for their springtime activities. We also I'm just reading my slide here. Another way that we've been supporting our student-run events is that for this year, we have a student ambassador to the PTSA who attends all of our meetings. And it's been great. We've had actually several students attending our meetings this year. So we've got a lot of really good, solid, immediate feedback and interaction with the kids constantly. And I also want to share that we're hearing from Mrs. Pipchinsky at the school that student investment and student involvement in the school activities is through the roof. So we take this as a vote of confidence in what we're doing, that we're going to continue on this path and continue engaging the kids. Another priority for us this year was working with the staff in the guidance office to assess their needs for student-centered programming. We're going to continue awarding teacher grants of $500 or less to our PTSA teacher members and staff members. I'm excited that we're going to be working very closely with the newspaper club coming up soon. We've also been doing grade-specific assemblies, and we're going to be doing more of them as the year progresses. We did just have an all ninth grade assembly featuring one of the lost boys of the Sudan, a young man by the name of Bol Bini. It was a fascinating talk to the ninth graders. And we are hoping to do more of those this year. One of our other priorities this year is the bilingual communication for families and for students. When I came on board last year, I instigated all of our email blasts are bilingual. And I make sure that all of our members of our community are accounted for and can receive our communications. And I'm really pleased that other groups in the district are following suit. Because when I was one of the stakeholders on the Princeton Plan Committee, we heard a lot from Sleepy Hollow School District about their Hispanic PTA organizations and Austining as well. I was really inspired by their work and I wanted to implement it here in a smaller capacity. We also had a translator available at our career fair last night. So we're trying to make sure that all of our activities are available to all of our students. And finally, our last priority, and I purposely put this last on the slide, is fundraising. Not only because we have a hard time doing it, but because we're here for the kids and the money is secondary. We've launched a number of new events. We had a color run this year for homecoming, and we're hoping that more of those will take traction and grow, and then we'll add other events as well. And we're also encouraging parents to stay involved. We all know that as the families age out of the district, you typically have less involvement, but we're here to say that we do still need all of our parents and all of our families to be involved, and we appreciate and are grateful for all of their help. So we want to keep on that path. Thank you. So our initiatives, as I've explained, we've had a number of events already to date. We had our first ever career fair last night. We had 45 career professionals in the Dome. It was really well attended. We had really good feedback from the professionals. And I think I'm not sure exactly how many students we had, but we had a good turnout for the first ever time doing this. And we're planning on doing it again next year. And that way we can gain the momentum and, kind of put the bee in the students' ears that, to come back. But the kids that were there really benefited from all of the talking to the different professionals. We had several school board members there last night representing their careers. So we thank you for your service last night. We really appreciate it. And the careers were all over the place. Every walk of life was represented, and something that we worked really hard to do. As I mentioned, we have a number of fundraising efforts that are underway this year and ongoing. It's not a huge amount of fundraising that happens at the high school level, just because, again, traditionally parents are more checked out at that point, and they're also incurring bigger expenses in their family and home situations with college. But we do still fundraise. We actually have a fruit fundraiser that's going on right now. And for future events that we have coming up, it'll be all steam ahead after this evening for our senior fashion show, which is happening on March 10th. And we'll be doing some more spring fundraising and awarding some more teacher grants. And we're going to be doing a transition to college event in conjunction with the guidance department later on this year. So at the bottom of this slide, I have a section called school board support and advocacy. Just items that I wanted to put on your radar screen for the high school for the upcoming year. One thing that has been very well received amongst our 10th grade parents has been the PSAT. It is a requirement for our 11th graders. And the 10th graders have the option to take it. And I like to think that it's a luxury that we can afford our students. Traditionally, our 10th graders have taken advantage of those tests when we've had extra copies of the test. And I would love to have further discussions with the board about making this available next year for all 10th graders in the district. I don't think it's a large exorbitant cost. So I'm hoping that that's something that we can push forward so we can guarantee that all 10th graders who want to take it next year are able. Another event I'd like to put on your radar is that last year we had some teaching and staff shortages at the high school, and we raised those concerns with the school board, and I am grateful for your response and the care and the answers that you gave us and the immediate action that you took. So thank you so much. I just wanted to explain that right now we have 2 teaching assistants at the high school, and we're coming into our major flu and cold and COVID season. It's going to rear its head every once in a while again. And I wanted to put it on your radar that I'm hoping that we can find money to provide more teaching assistants for the high school because as you all know, at the high school, we have 3 lunch periods that are very large groups of kids in attendance. And if we can have more teaching assistants in the school, when there are teacher absences, we don't have to put everybody in the cafeteria and it doesn't become a cesspool. So we are hoping that we'll get some more teaching assistants that would really help us coming into these winter illness months. Okay, I'd also like to put on your radar screen, we'd like to reactivate the HHCSD Advocacy Committee. And I know Janine's going to talk about this as well, but it's a committee that used to be involved here at the district and has taken a step back, and Janine will talk about that further when she gets to the middle school. I'd also like to put on your radar the number of translators that are at the high school. Right now, to my understanding, there are 2 ENL teachers and I believe 1 translator. So I just was very surprised at our 9th grade event for the entire 9th grade. We had a large number of non-English speakers in the audience, and I only saw 1 ENL teacher working through Google Translate for all of them. So I was really surprised at that, and I'm hoping that we can remedy that at the high school. And lastly, I want to thank you for having us provide this opportunity to give you these updates here in this forum. And I'd like to put in a plea for it to be a regular occurrence. So thank you so much. And I'm going to turn the mic over to my co-reports at the list.
Hello, everyone. So when we embarked on this year in the middle school, it's a very different year. Obviously, we're coming back from 2 years of everything that happened in the world, everything that happened in the district. And for the middle school in particular, there was change in leadership. There was a lot of change within the faculty in the middle school. And, we've learned one thing over the past few years, and that is how important clear communication, simple communication, and information is for all of us and for our members. So it was a really important initiative for us to be able to sort of synthesize the right communication path, the right dissemination of information in a way that was digestible for a group of people who are just getting flooded with information from every single school and everyone in the district. So that became a huge priority for us because we needed that information so that when we resumed this first academic year in school, we knew what to focus on, we knew what to prioritize. So that for us sort of set the stage for how we're going to prioritize everything else, which Janine will talk about in a moment. So, first and foremost, we were very mindful. We heard the feedback from parents that they were just getting bombarded with tons of different communication streams that were not necessarily clear, and verbose and it was just, they were drowning in information and therefore it's no longer helpful, it's spam. So we took the initiative to try and streamline the information into very sort of a regular cadence of communication and in very digestible visual manner so that we could sort of disseminate what they needed to know and curate it in a way that was easy for them to sort of get what they needed and move on to what else they needed to do. So, you know, been working on that. We've gotten good feedback and we're always looking for new feedback on that. So that's one thing we've done. Working with Mrs. Collins has been fantastic. She's been a great partner with us. She's been very open to any suggestions we've had. She's been very open to inviting us into the school so that we can firsthand, the collective team of us, we've joined her faculty meetings. We really encourage them to reach out to us, engage us, help them solve their problems. And we did that at the beginning of the year so that they have the full year to sort of take full advantage of the partnership that we can offer for them and also to help us decide what's important for us to focus on. We can renew programs we did in past years. We don't know if they make sense. So they need to help us decide that and to focus our efforts and initiatives and funds in that way. And I think also we've had a renewed communication with all of you. So this, of course, is the way in which we do that. But we do speak with all of you regularly. We do speak with one another regularly, all of the PTAs. And, you know, these students are not isolated in these schools. So when they transition or when they're planning to make that transition, and just sort of how we solve for problems in different schools has really had a huge impact and how quickly you can address and sort of plan for some of these things for the rest of the year. So communication was our priority for all of those collective reasons. And Janine can sort of speak to how that has played out for us this year.
Let's talk about a lot of things that seems. So let's see from the next one. These are our initiatives this year. Our events to date, as we think we're starting, so we have a new administrator, a new principal at the middle school who has been a great partner to us. We also have a lot of new staff in the middle school. We had a lot of retirements last year, a lot of staff moved on. So we've got other teachers that came in. So we wanted to give everybody a chance to kind of settle into their new role and learn their environment before we started throwing too much at them or telling them to throw stuff back at us. So we did join the faculty meeting last month or earlier this month, still November, few more hours. And we spoke with all of the teachers and staff and we said, look, we're here to support you, we're here to help you. We want to know what you want to do. So we are in conversations with teachers there to find out what they'd like us to do to support them. We have met with the student government leaders. We have been in contact with gardening club chairs and other committee chairs there to let them know that we're there as their support and to find out what they want. So while we are working that out, we have had a significant fundraising effort at the beginning of this year. Fundraising at the middle school was light in the last few years, but a lot of the schools was light, elementary as well, because aren't doing as much, and then through the transitions that we've had. So we are trying to do some fun and different things. Our school photos were great this year. Our spirit wear sale, all the items are in, we're getting ready to pass those out. We did that sale in conjunction with the high school. So that was another way that we could work together to bring something to our families. We had a bake sale on election day. One of our board members suggested that. We thought that's a fantastic idea. Since so many people come through our middle school to vote, come in, some coffee. Have a donut. So we had great support from our families who donated everything that we sold that day, and it was wonderful. And it was a great chance for people to stop and chat. I myself spoke with Anna and I were there almost the whole day, and we spoke with community members. So my kid went to the school 28 years ago, and it's so nice to be back in the building and to see the changes. So that was a great way to open ourselves up to the community and have conversations with people that we wouldn't have otherwise met. So that will definitely be ongoing. I do want to throw out, you can see at the top one there is Buff City Soap. So tomorrow, go do some holiday shopping at Buff City Soap and just say BMMS PTA, and we will get a portion of those proceeds. Sailor Suds. So yes, we have a custom soap. It is blue and white sailor colors, and I think Anne's name, Sailor Suds or Michelle. One of these two. So go get your Sailor Suds tomorrow. It's a great teacher gift. To be that way. It's for everyone knows. Yes. So that's a little plug for us there. But what we're going to do is we take all these funds and we're ready to spend it on the students. It's going to be spent on programming. It's going to be spent on support for our staff. So our future consideration coming up. We're thrilled that this year field trips are back. The 8th grade chorus trip to Broadway is happening again, and we're able to help coordinate that. Our 8th grades Band students are going to be participating in music in the parks, and we're working with that. We are bringing in authors and other presenters into the school building again, and hoping to have some really great programs to keep the kids engaged, to keep the staff excited about what they're doing, and just bring everybody together. The 6th grade panel is something that happens. We do at the high school, we do a 9th grade panel. So for the next year's, the rising 6th graders, this year's 5th graders will get to meet with the current 6th graders and ask questions. What's going on at the high school? How does lunch work? How do lockers work? The 9th graders here at the high school will do the same thing for this year's 8th graders and talk about changing classes and moving around the building. So those are great things that we're really happy to partner together with our teachers on. And this year, our 6th grade panel is going to happen a little earlier in the year, so our students have the information as they're, working toward that transition. Our BOE support and advocacy, we're so happy to have these conversations with you. Communication is two-way. And we're happy to share information. We're very happy to hear back from you as well. So having this open line of communication is great. Being able to be here to present to you, but also to everybody watching at home. Hi all. Hey mom. It's great because it shows the true partnership. And that's something that we're very happy about. And like Rebecca said, echo that. We hope to come back and be able to do this for you during the year and let you know how things are going. So advocacy, I'm gonna get to that in a sec. I do want to do one more break. Can we go to the next slide, please? So let me jump to that and then I'm gonna come back up. So we're all coming in together. I just mentioned the 9th grade panel, but Rebecca can talk a little more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as Janine said, we have a number of transition activities to streamline when students are moving between schools to ease their concerns. The questions on these events are fabulous. In the high school, do you use your lockers? And the answer is no. And in the middle school, it's, I have to change for gym, really, really fantastic questions. And so, yeah, the parents get involved in it as well. And we look forward to these events because it's so great to be able to share all of our knowledge. And the kids that we get as our panelists are so well spoken, and they come up with just insanely smart answers, and better than we could have even dreamed. So anyway, they're really, really fun events every year. So that's one of our collaborations is we do those, like I said, the 6th grader and the 9th grader panels. A couple of years ago, we wanted to have more of a collaboration between the high school and the middle school. And I was considering doing a used book sale while we were at the middle school. And then I said, you know what, how about we partner with the high school? We actually ended up doing it here on the high school lawn so that it encouraged the middle schoolers to come over to the high school, get on the campus, get comfortable being in the driveway, doing the loop. So anyway, we've had a lot of success doing that used book sale as every spring. And then
Yeah, so we really want to bring our SEPTA in more. I think a lot of parents don't really know what the SEPTA is and what they're there to do and the support that they can give. That group of parents is incredibly knowledgeable and they can provide so much information. So the next one down is the New York State PTA Convention, and I was very happy to attend this year. The high school and middle school sponsored my attendance. One of the things that happens at the state convention, aside from the business meeting of the PTA, is an opportunity to attend workshops. And I attended a workshop on SEPTAs. And I learned so much. One of the first things that, in the workshop, I was texting SEPTA saying, guys, we need you at every meeting. And all of our PTAs have instantly put our SEPTA on our agendas for every meeting. So our SEPTA will always have an opportunity to come and share what they're doing. The same way we have our Board of Ed liaisons on our agendas at every meeting. So you guys can share what's happening at meetings. Now we'll be able to have our SEPTA reps come in as well. And we're going to share their information so that our parents know that they exist and where they can go to reach things, to reach information and people who can help. The PTA convention is one thing. There are actually 3 conventions that New York State runs throughout the year. And also one of the things we're going to talk about in a sec, but is the structure of PTA. Not everybody realizes that PTA is a national organization, that we are here in our schools, but beyond our buildings. SEPTA doesn't have a building. They're in all 5 of our buildings. Beyond our district, we're part of the Westchester East Putnam region, and that region is part of one of 18 regions throughout New York State. New York State is one state of all of those in the country that participate in the national PTA. So what that gives us is it gives us a support network. It gives us people across the country that we can reach out to say, how do you do this in Oklahoma? And how are you doing this in Vermont? And how are you working this in Florida? What's going on? We can hear the issues that are important to our counterparts around the country, especially here in New York State. We can find out what's going on in state, what's happening on Long Island, and we can say, this is what we're doing here in Westchester. It's a great way to share ideas. So we have, for the last number of years, had representatives attend the New York State PTA convention in November. We do a lobby day in February where we have an opportunity to actually meet with our legislators and promote the advocacy efforts of PTA for our students and teachers. And we have a summer leadership conference in the summer, which is 2 or 3 days, and it's full of training and workshops. So we have the ability to talk and discuss. A PTA convention is one of those things, and that's where this, kind of, I would say, invigorated partnership with SEPTA has come in. So we're really happy to be partnering with them a lot.
The career fair last night. So the career fair, I know we've talked about it a bit, but I think what was really special about the career fair was just how committed this collective group, I'm saying multiple people tonight who were there last night, and we came together in a way that actually not only brought forth different career opportunities and sort of insights for these students, but it just sort of was a renewed sort of approach to a collective commitment to this community. And I thought that that was really good for the community, as well as being really good for the students, of course, as well. So, and I think that's just the more we sort of collectively partner as a larger group, the more we'll sort of build that camaraderie and we'll build the strength of community that pretty much will allow us to tackle anything that we can face in the future. And I think that's really important for us to do. I got very, I don't know what, I don't need to go all Oscar on you, but it was.
And I just actually want to mention, Career Day at the middle school, hopefully we're making a comeback this year. It hasn't happened the last years because of COVID, but we've spoken with Mrs. Collins, and there is someone who hopefully will be taking that on. So we hope to be able to share more information about that, because that would be, it's a wonderful event. If you've never been to a middle school career day, it's great because the kids are all in the building. They have great opportunity to kind of dance around and see a lot of things, a lot of people. All right, so just to finish up, I do want to talk about advocacy for a moment. The primary focus of PTA is advocacy organization. And one of the things that we do within our units is to really work on behalf of our students and our teachers. And being here tonight is one of those ways that we can do that. Rebecca has had many conversations about going to the high school and things that we need, such as the things that she spoke about, that are really important to our high school students and teachers. The advocacy committee existed for a while. It was active for a little bit, and then it kind of got quiet and COVID happened. And one of the things that we've been working on since last spring is to really bring that back. So we have a couple of parents who are interested, and hopefully will be stepping up and be meeting soon to take on the chair of that, something that I had done for a long time, but I want to focus on the PTA. That would be my unit that I'm co-leading. So we're going to have some fresh parents come in and take on those advocacy efforts. In the past, we have met with board members when issues have come up. Margaret's been in meetings. We had a FAST board president and other board members be there to meet with parents who had concerns. One of the things that we looked at our role as was as that liaison, as that connection between the parent and the administration and the board, to talk about the issues that are important and things that we really need to focus on. So we're hoping to bring that back, and we welcome that opportunity. I will always stay active in the advocacy committee, and hopefully that is something that when we have that leadership established, we'll share that information with the community, with each of the PTA units, and with all of you, so that you know who to reach out to if you have something that you want to discuss with the PTAs and bring to our attention or to help coordinate. So advocacy is incredibly important. You all know that. That's why you're in the roles you're in. And that's something that we're really, really thrilled to be partnering with you on. So I think the last slide is just, does anybody have any questions for us or anything you'd like to bring up to us now?
I just want to say thank you for all you do. I'm so glad to see you guys here tonight, and this is fantastic. And you're doing so much for kids, and anything that we can do to support that, just always communicate. Thank you.
I like it. I was just gonna say, I like the color run. It was fun, and it was a great way for the younger kids to participate in a homecoming activity. And And, you know, the football game was Friday night and then the color run Saturday morning. So it was a good way for the younger kids to celebrate outside of just coming to the game and get a little of that community spirit. So thank you for including them this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I have plans next year to expand into Sunday morning too with a pancake breakfast, and Claire's already on notice.
One other thing, that I don't think you mentioned was that the PTA helped, get high school PTA, right? You guys helped get the stuff for the haunted Halloween, you recruited that, but the funds that day did not go to the PTA. So you want to explain
Yeah,
that?
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so all of the money that was collected from the admission fees on the night of the haunted high school, we divided it up between the 15 clubs that each had a room at the high school. So the money went back to each of the 15 clubs, and Dave, I don't remember how much it was.
I think it was like 150.
Yeah, it was about $150 for each club, which is several days of bake sales in the cafeteria for them. So they were grateful for that money. So yeah, and that's another reason why we do what we do at the high school, is that, you know, we're helping the clubs, not necessarily helping, you know, our larger PTA.
So for parents of younger students who don't get to hear so much about what's going on in the high school, is like social media the best way? What's the best way to follow and kind of know what's going on? Because I feel like I hear about the events that the little ones that can be involved with, like Color Run or the haunted high school. But just to be aware of what's going on, right? If you want to come watch or view, what's the best way to stay engaged?
Yeah, well, I want to say a thank you to our elementary PTA because they've been great about promoting events like the Color Run or the haunted high school. So thank you. Yeah, we have a Facebook page and we have an Instagram page, and we post everything there. So that's a great way for elementary parents to just quickly follow and check in and see what's going on without getting barraged by our emails. Yeah, and at the high school, we also have a page for every single class, you know, seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen on Facebook, but that you'll get there. But honestly, social media is the best way because we put everything up there, especially during the summer too, when stuff's going on and we don't send emails.
And something that we're doing at the middle school is the first of every month, we're sharing important dates, and we're not just limiting it to middle school events. So like tomorrow, it will publish the dates of everything that's happening district wide. So like our October dates had the Color Run, it had the, it was October. It also had the Fall Festival at the elementary school. So like for this coming month, the one that I'm gonna post tomorrow on our Facebook page and that we'll share with our middle school members, it will include anything of interest to our students. So the high school band and chorus concerts, you know, the musical in the spring will be on there. So any event, Breakfast with Frosty is going to be on there. The middle school, we're a transition time for students, but also for families, because we have a lot of families in the middle school who also have either elementary students or high school students. Like I've got kids in both. Kids along all three levels of our education spectrum. So we share those dates as well. And the elementary, we're all trying to share everything because we really take the whole one hand hug thing very seriously. And we really want this to be a community where parents and students and children can feel comfortable going into any of our buildings for any of these events that are appropriate for them.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. It was wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back to Greg and see if he can work some technology. All right, well, welcome, Barb. We see you. We think we can hear you. Why don't you give this a test?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Great. Well, thanks for joining us. We had, I had already given the introduction as to how we got here, so we'll.
I heard before, yes.
Our school board meeting from whatever parts of Long Island you're on, but if you want to give us a introductory to what your office does and how you support school districts, and then we'll jump in.
Yeah, so I'll start off with that. I'm just wondering if I could share my screen and because I think this PowerPoint, I'm just wondering if it's gotten a little distorted.
We have it clear on our end. Do you
Okay.
have? We're okay on our end.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm sorry we had a little hitch there, but hopefully we're off and running now. So thank you for having me this evening. I'll just start off the presentation by giving you a little background on the Office of School Planning and Research at Western Suffolk BOCES. Since 1985, we have completed more than 1,300 studies for districts on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley, as well as some other counties a little further north. Some of the Westchester County districts that we are currently working with include North Salem, Byram Hills, Ossining, Mount Pleasant, White Plains, and others as noted there. Okay, next slide. I'll start off by just giving you a little bit of an idea of what goes into a study. First, we start with the demographics. We research various things for the district, including births. And we look at state births, county births, town births, all the way down to the school district level. We also look at housing. We research rates of housing turnover within the district. And we also contact the local municipalities to find out if there's any new or proposed housing in the pipeline. Then we look at, we research a lot of census data to gather trends on population, and that would include the ethnic breakdown of the resident population in the district, the age structure, and other, as well as other household characteristics. And then the last, non-public school, and if it applies, charter school enrollment, we look at those trends to see if there are any factors that would impact district enrollment. Then we analyze district enrollment. We look at trends over the past 10 years with an emphasis on the most recent 3 to 5 years. We also analyze migration patterns in the district, meaning we look at does the district tend to gain, maintain, or lose students as a cohort moves from one grade to the next in the following year. And from that, we develop migration ratios that we use to project grade level enrollment. And the last one there, the birth persistence analysis. This is where we analyze and compare the number of kindergarten students in a given year in relation to the number of births 5 years prior. And from that, we develop kindergarten birth ratios that are used to project kindergarten enrollment. These are some of the research sources that we utilize. A big one is the Census Bureau, as well as we gather data from the New York State Education Department, New York State Department of Health, the Office of Real Property Services, the National Center for Health Statistics, all the way down to the local planning boards and the school district. I'm often asked about the accuracy of our projections. Overall enrollment projections produced by Western Suffolk BOCES generally fall within a 4% margin of error. However, you should know that there are basically 3 categories of projections. The first would be projections based on students already enrolled in the district, and those would be the most reliable. The second category would be projections based on documented births, which are slightly less reliable. And then the third category would be projections based on estimates of future births, which would be the least reliable. And of course, the most reliable projections are those calculated for the periods closest in time, particularly for the first 5-year period, because obviously after that, a lot of trends can change, a lot of things can happen. So generally, like, as I said, the first 5 years are that's the most reliable. Okay, then now we'll look at the demographics in the district. This slide shows just the population within the Hendrick Hudson School District for the period of 2000 through 2020. So from 2000 to 2010, there was an population increase of 6.2%, or almost 1,000 people, followed by a smaller increase during the next 10 years of 3.6%, or approximately 600 people. Next one. This slide shows the age structure of the resident population within the district over the same period, 20-year period, from 2000 through 2020. And if you look at the top line, you see the under 5 or the preschool population that has been decreasing. That segment made up 6.6% of the population in 2000, and that has dropped to 4.6% by 2020. The next line shows the school age population, 5 to 19. That has also declined from 19.8% in 2000 to 14.6% in 2020. If you go down to the bottom, however, the 65 and older, the senior population, as we're seeing in just about every district we work with, has grown. That segment accounted for 15.5% of residents in 2000, but that has grown to more than 18% in 2020. And those changes are reflected in the median age in the district, which has grown from 44.7 years in 2010 to 46 years in 2020. Next one. This slide, now this one is a little distorted, but I think we can look at the data here. This shows the ethnic breakdown of the resident population. In the first section there on the left, again, it's hard to tell. This slide has gotten distorted. In 2000, approximately 67% of residents were white, but that by 2020, that dropped to 62.5%. However, there has been growth among the minority groups, particularly among Hispanic residents, which has grown from 5.5% in 2000 to 17, slightly more than 17% in 2020. And the next one. This shows the ethnic breakdown of the student enrollment within the district, which shows a similar trend. However, the breakdown is different. If you look on the left-hand side, approximately 55% of the enrollment represents white students. That compares to a much smaller segment than the overall resident population. However, if you look at the Hispanic segment, Hispanic students comprise nearly 31% of the enrollment compared to 17% of the overall resident population. On the next one, this slide shows births in Westchester County over the same 20-year period, during which time there has been a decrease of 28%. The next one.
Barbara, can we go back a slide? We have a question on the student ethnic breakdown slide.
Sure.
So just going from the 67% to the 55%, does that mean that most of the retirees in the district, that they're not, it tends to be white that stay in the district and not move out once their kids graduate from school? Is that how we read that?
Yes, I think it's, yes, what happens is, and again, we see this in a lot of districts, that, yes, the resident population as a whole, is, whites represent a much greater degree of the population, because a lot of those are older citizens, older residents. Whereas in the schools, obviously, you know, we're looking at younger residents. So the, yeah, so that accounts for the difference there.
Okay. I wonder why we're gonna have a more diverse population of aging residents, right? Or wouldn't we want a more diverse population of aging residents in the district before? Why isn't that happening?
Well, it may be because those, as our student makeup becomes more diverse, those families will get older and then appear in greater proportion on the resident, right? Or it counts for, you know, one parent with two or three children.
Or is this a blind spot for us and we should do more in the community?
You know, this is typical of the country as a whole, where you know, the white population, the baby boomers, basically, that are primarily overwhelmingly white, are aging. So they're, you know, they're beyond this. Obviously, they're well out of out of the schools, whereas a lot of the minority groups are younger and they're the ones in a lot of cases who are having more children. So therefore, you're seeing a much more diverse population in the schools than you're seeing in the overall resident population.
I mean, everybody gets older. Where are they going?
Well, I think maybe it's less about where they're going. Maybe it's more about how old are people when they come here and what's the rate of immigration in general.
Right.
So I think what's happening is the older population, we had a lesser immigrant representation.
But this doesn't represent immigrants. This represents diversity. It doesn't necessarily, you could have white immigrants, you could have black, right? So it's not an immigration thing. This is a diversity thing.
I think it's a reflection of the United States population as a whole, correct? I mean, if you look at baby boomers and their ethnic breakdown.
It just, I don't know, it strikes me that there are a lot of people retiring here that are white, and we're not getting a lot of diversity in the retiring population. And I understand that's.
Well, that's one of the, you know,
where's everybody going?
well, that's one of the stories we've heard consistently from real estate agents, is that when families, when parents youngest graduate from high school, they're not necessarily selling. That's different for our community than it is some lower Westchester communities. And one of the reasons that real estate agents believe, and I believe it too, is our community for Westchester has been one of the more affordable suburban communities, so there's no incentive to sell. There's not as great of incentive to sell. Or we had a meeting before this with community members for 8 years in a row. We had an average tax increase of 1.04. That's a pretty good incentive to not sell and not move, right? So that could be it as well. That there isn't available housing because no one's selling, so we're not seeing that shift with an older population.
Right, but we're seeing, if I look further into this, the sales are going up, which is interesting because that's very different than I've been seeing on the market data that we've been getting. So it doesn't seem to, something's not aligned here. Okay.
Okay, Barbara,
Thank
we'll
you.
go
Barbara.
to number 11, slide 11.
To go along with something that I heard a little bit mentioned there, and you'll see this in a couple of slides. The median home price within the district is $549,000. That's as of partly through 2022. There are a lot of districts in Westchester, obviously, where the median home price is close to $1 million. So I think you touched on that in your discussion there about the home prices being more affordable there. So just as a point of information. Okay, so we can see births are declining. And then on the next slide, we'll see births within the Hendrick-Hudson School District. And as you can see, from 2007 through 2017, births really fluctuated. The two highest years were in 2016 and 2017. However, in the following 3 years, births dropped down to among the lowest level of the district. So there's been a lot of fluctuation there. And that obviously impacts kindergarten enrollment. Okay, next, this is.
Can I just have a question about that? So when people move, they tend to have their children and then move out to the suburbs, right? So is this really, like, this is assuming that someone's already bought their house, already lives here, and then has a child, not that someone's had a child somewhere else, then moved here, right? I think that's what a lot of people have done.
Well, this does give an indication, though. You're absolutely right. You know, if there were 100 children born in the district in 2022, it doesn't mean that those children are still going to be this, you know, entering the school 5 years later. Some of those children will have moved out. Other children will have moved in. This is where we develop kindergarten birth ratios, where we compare, as I mentioned before, kindergarten enrollment with the number of births 5 years prior. And we develop a ratio, and then we'll look at historical ratios and look at the averages. And those ratios take into account children who move in and also move out. But the births they're kind of a starting point of how we go about projecting kindergarten enrollment. And generally, you definitely see a correlation. In some years, it's more so than others, but overall, the averages do show a correlation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. This shows housing sales within the districts, within the district going back through 2006. And as you can see, housing turnover was at a low in 2011 of 84 sales, and that has grown up to last year in 2021 to 225 units. And then on the next slide, you will see the growth also in the median sale price, which was at a low of $330,000 in 2012 and has grown to $510,000 last year in 2021. And preliminary data for 2022 indicates a further increase. Next, we'll look at enrollment in Westchester County for the period 2012 through 2021. And during that period, there has been a loss of almost 9,000 students, or more than 6%, with a significant drop in 2020 as a result of COVID. This shows the enrollment within the Hendrick-Hudson School District. From 2012 to 2022, there has been a loss of 322 students, or 13%. And we are projecting an additional decrease of 251 students, or 11.6%. This slide shows the actual change by grade configuration for the 10-year historical period and then the 10-year projection period. So historically, for the last 10 years, you can see the kindergarten, the elementary configuration, grade configuration lost 90 students. There was a loss of 133 students in the middle grades and a loss of 99 students in the high school grades. Moving forward for the next 10 years, we're projecting an additional decrease of 127 students in the elementary grades, 56 students in the middle grades, and 68 students in the high school grades. Some factors that have impacted the projected enrollment. On average, the district gains or maintains students in transition to most grades. However, average losses are recorded to grades 2, 8, 10, and 12. And in addition, losses through displacement have occurred, that is smaller kindergarten classes replacing larger graduating 12th grade classes, have occurred in 9 of the last 10 years, and this trend is expected to continue with additional losses of between 5 to 60 students each year through 2032 due to this displacement. So some considerations for district planning. Many districts that we work with are faced with declining enrollments, and some have had to make the difficult decision to close schools, or in some cases reconfigure schools. However, despite declining enrollments, numerous districts are also facing other budgetary considerations, such as many districts have aging facilities, which require maintenance or capital improvements, which obviously have to be taken care of, whether there are 500 students enrolled in the school or whether enrollment has dropped down to 400 students. The facilities still need to be maintained. Also, most facilities are in need of security or safety upgrades. Also, changes in instructional programs often require restructured teaching spaces. And in addition, changes in student demographics may require more spaces for small group instruction. So even though districts are facing decline in enrollments, they're still faced with the having to allocate money for some of these considerations. So are there any other questions?
Barbara, I do have one. You mentioned early number of districts you work with in our county or Lower Hudson region. While the county is experiencing a 6.2% decline, are there districts that are around us experiencing student population incline, and what might you attribute that to?
For the most part, as a generalization, districts closer to the city, whether it's in Nassau County on Long Island or Lower Westchester County, those seem to be they maybe had a little decline during COVID, but then since then that has that has come back. So those seem to be the districts within easing commuting distance where, if anything, they are not seeing the declines that a lot of other districts are seeing.
I'd be really interested to see how we benchmark against our neighboring districts that are comparable. I don't know if there's a way to get that report.
Yeah, we'll find out if there is a way. I mean, Barbara's group works with Croton, Lakeland, Peekskill, and Ossining, Somers, a bunch in our neighborhood. We'll see if we can find their reports and see if the trend is consistent.
Yeah, that would be my concern. If there's something that would be unique to us that we should adjust on or consider for the long term.
Since we've had such a decline, is the staffing budget the same? Like, have we declined, like decreased staff? We have not.
Stephanie, for years, this has been my discussion with Joe. And really because without looking at anything else, but numbers. I keep telling Joe, when I started here, there were 2,400 students and we had 230 teachers. Now we have 2,100 students and we have 360 teachers. So we have 200 less students, but we have about 25 more teachers. So this has been my discussion with Joe for 7-8 years because I can understand back then when I started here, if you look, most of the population was white, usually white people. They were born and raised here rather than the Hispanic that usually need a lot more help and everything. But yeah, it's something that Joe and I have been discussing for years.
Yeah, it's not a correlation, and that, you know, sort of our running joke is that we're not declining either enough or in the right grade levels to be able to relate, you know, reduction in staff or program right away. We were talking earlier with Lisa, one of our largest growing segments of our staffing is in mental health. You know, in the last 5 years, we added 2 or 3 school counselors, a number of social workers, psychologists to work on that side of the educational, of the support side of the educational house. And same thing with, you know, whether it's special ed, we can't control who has or who doesn't have an IEP, and oftentimes add staff there. So it is not a correlation.
Because I'm looking at like numbers, you know, if I look at Furnace Wood, it had 309 students. And then it was down to 248, and Frank G had 468, and then it was down to 419. And the high school had 825 students, now it's down to 726. That's a loss of a lot of students. So I would think that our operating budget, since we've lost so many students, would have decreased somewhat too. I get the counselors, I completely am for that. And I think that's why the Biden administration gave us the money for that, to offset that cost for the districts. Thank you. But I'm surprised to look at these numbers.
Yeah, every year, and you'll be part of it this year, we look at the enrollment, number of students by grade level, and we look at the staffing, and the decision we have been continuing to make is to not reduce staff in relation to declining enrollment. Some of that has been because our budget, we were in a good place financially, and it just, we didn't need it. We didn't need to do it financially. Some decisions were, at least last couple of years, were around the pandemic, and to not do that to kids and to sort of ease back into normal life. Other reasons were around class sizes, that we didn't want to go to, you know, our caps around 24 or 26. We wanted to be below that as a mechanism to recruit new families. But I hear you, and that will be a discussion we'll have again in February or March, when we look at staffing vis-a-vis enrollment by grade level and by program. A number of years ago, and Enrique was the only one here at this table, but there was a really hard cap on minimum number of students to take electives. And if there were not the minimum number of students, that elective didn't get offered, and there were some last minute staffing decisions that were made. When our finances turned around and got better, that hard cap sort of went away because we wanted to have those opportunities. There are districts, and you may work in one, that says if you don't have at least 12 or 15, it's not being run. And the sad thing is, when we look at some of those analyses and metrics, there would be a lot of opportunities our kids wouldn't have, and most of those opportunities are at the college level, dual credit and AP classes. So it's a thankless decision Yeah.
I get it, but I also think that we need to think that 2 kids in a class. I mean, there's a cap or even, but also reimagine other ways that we can offer that same program. Without cutting anything.
Erica? I'm looking at the numbers on slide 13. And you can see that we sold quite a few homes, right? So we're at a higher level of homes in 2021. Without the kids, right? The kids aren't coming with the home sale. Do we think, because we've been talking about moving to Princeton plan now for 2 years, that has anything to do with the transition that we just made, that parents with student, like our home prices are desirable. But now that we have this new model, that maybe people are staying away, because now we see a 2-year trend with major increases in homes selling, but decreases in students.
I don't know, Barbara, if you have any insight on that, or if we don't have enough information.
Yes, we really, of course, you have to keep in mind that some of these sales could be, and there's no way to track it, unfortunately, some could be attributed to movement within the district, either seniors downsizing or younger families who are buying larger homes within the district. As a generalization, even when younger families are moving in, they are not having as many children as they had in previous years. So it remains to be seen. We're not, and you would think that with the increase in housing sales, that enrollment would be skyrocketing, but we are not seeing that in any district so far. Now, will this happen maybe 5 years down the road, once some of these families get settled in and do decide to have more children? But again, right now that there's nothing to indicate that will be the trend. The birth rates are still declining, and fewer births means fewer students in the schools. So
We don't know how many of these home sales went with kids, didn't go with kids, the kids moved in and enrolled. I mean, because it is significant when you look back over the years. So the fact that there's no kids tied to them is interesting to me, especially over the last couple of years.
One thought I would give to that, Erica, is during that time, around 2017, and I can check for sure, is when many of those condos and townhomes in Valeria opened up. And they made a bunch of them. And while they could not they could not prohibit young families from moving in, the design of the new area of Valeria was and is not very family friendly. And when we looked at this a number of years ago in terms of how many students live in Valeria, I think at one point we were busing only 4 total. And if you drive by, or at least if you used to drive by, I used to walk the dog there, you'd see a couple condos that would have a Fisher Price playset or some other things, and those aren't there anymore. And it was shortly after Indian Point announced their closure. I remember I met with the developer and I said, what is this going to do? You know, you built these $800,000 to $950,000 homes. What is this going to do? And the gentleman basically said, we're fine, because the people who are moving here do not have kids. They're coming from lower Westchester County or the city or from parts of the tri-state area. And your taxes are so low, they're paying 1/3 of what they were in other places, and that's cash back in their pocket. So I don't know that for a fact, but I had written that while Barbara was going through this, is that could be it, that artificial home sales or that home sale and median price increase may not be from necessarily families turning over, but could be new inventory. And that inventory is pretty pricey, but we can try to explore that a little bit.
Okay, I'm looking at this too, because now we know that exists and other school districts have done this. Has anyone ever looked at, you know, like when Peekskill switched over to Princeton Plan or Yorktown switched over to their restructuring, if their if they had a drop in enrollment at all. I know it's gonna be hard to tell with this also goes back to metrics and what we're measuring. It'd be hard to tell because of COVID necessarily, but maybe that's something that, you know, is a trend from, we can look at other districts to see what they did when they
Yeah,
restructured.
we could see, we'd have to benchmark that against the count, you know, probably the county rate that 6.2% decline over the last 10 years, but that might be something that could give us some insight.
Are you questioning whether moving to a Princeton plan impacts enrollment itself? I didn't quite follow that.
That's what I'm questioning if there's any data that we can use to look at.
As far as I have not seen any district that really experienced an increase or a decline in enrollment as a result of, I'm not saying that there hasn't been, but I have not seen that where there's been an increase or a decrease in enrollment as a result of switching to a Princeton plan.
Do a lot do that? I feel like that's not like the most common thing to do, right? So what other schools recently that you would look at that we could compare it to?
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said, I don't think that's something that is common, right? Like that's kind of it happens, but it's kind of uncommon. So looking back, what school district has done it recently that you haven't seen a change? I mean, I'm thinking in Westchester County.
No,
where
I'd
Joe
have
said-
to, I'd have to, you know, do a little research on that. There are, I can say as a generalization, you know, there are a number of districts who have moved to a Princeton plan. Generally, you know, as far as creating equity within the district, as far as class sizes and ethnically, it generally, you know, it balances out the enrollment from school to school. So it's like I said, I have not seen that it's impacted enrollment either way. It's districts have really moved in that direction more, you know, in order to maintain equity within the school, so that all students can participate and access the same programs and, you know, that sort of thing. And maintain, you know, equalize class sizes and so forth.
But you've got some class sizes that are completely neat and equal to be equalized if you look at the enrollment here. So, I mean,
Is you're saying that did occur in Hendrick Hudson?
no, I'm not saying that one way or the other. I'm just saying that enrollment.
Is there any other questions for Barb?
No.
We can, okay. Anybody questions for Barb? Barbara? Call her Barb, like she's my best friend. Thank you so much. This was very helpful. Thanks for joining us tonight.
All right, if you have any additional questions, you can always email me. I'd be happy to address any further questions.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'd love to get that benchmarking, you know, report on benchmarking. Be a follow-up on Princeton plan districts.
Yeah, we know of a few in the last maybe handful of years that have transitioned. They're not in our county, so I don't know how their trends would benchmark against. I don't know how their trends behave vis-a-vis their own county or region, but we are aware of a handful probably that went in the last anywhere between 2 to 5 years.
Can you go back even further for like when Austin did it or Yorktown?
We could, I don't.
My next door neighbor lived in Austin when they switched to.
Yeah.
Princeton.
Oh, yeah, and then
She
We
does-
have some people in the community.
So I'm just going by what she said.
yeah, now I wish you were still here because we would want to. I call Barbara. I gotta believe that the factors that led to increase or decreasing enrollment. Were also around whatever activities were happening in that region or economic, housing market, inflation, you name it. So I don't know, I'm just not sure that if we look at, okay, the first 5 years after Ossining went to the Princeton plan, could we attribute any of those increases or decreases to the principal? We could certainly look and see if they have those reports. I don't know that we'd be able to make that correlation, but we could ask them to see if they have those reports. Yeah, say Tarrytown or South Orange Town, or, you know, you name it. But I think trying to look at districts in our region around the same time frame may give us more, because we want to benchmark any increase or decrease against the county, right? Because that's sort of the catchment area, but we can ask, see if that information is available.
And you could also argue people are gonna buy here now because Indian Point is closing. There, you know, there was a point where people didn't want to move here because it was so close to Indian Point, but now that it's closing, maybe everybody wants to buy here, so we might see a spike in home sales because of that. But, you know, it doesn't relate to the Princeton. Right, and so we don't know unless we do that kind of digging, and that's a big piece of work.
Great, do we have anybody signed up for audience agenda items?
Dana Boyer. I'm gonna make it quick, everyone.
All right, and I'm not gonna read the polls.
I swear, it's really good. So just some points. One, I love that school calendar came up. Woo-hoo. Because that's one thing I would have came to talk about. So we talked about it a little bit, and just around the loss of income that we had because we didn't have anything in 80 days. So can we give some concession to increase time in school? A recommendation, do we need spring conferences? Some other districts go optional for that, and they really allow it up to the parents to schedule that meeting, so maybe that will save us. But I do believe that in our school calendar, let's increase the time for students to be in the classroom. I'm for it. I'm sorry, Johanna, I know you'll never watch this, but mommy wants you in class more.
So more parades and more math.
Exactly, more math and more writing. Fund balance, this is for you, Enrique. Do we have to keep a minimum in our fund balance, or are we able to deplete it? Awareness for the BOE, Lakeland State Aid makes out about 42% because I get the Lakeland budget every year based on where I live for some reason. So just hopefully we get the 42% in state aid from the state. Do we have any new revenue streams coming in? Rising Star, we see drops in their enrollments. Do we not have to pay for that student? So basically, are we funding Rising Star at the beginning or at the end based on?
Per student at the moment.
At the moment, okay, so it's like a monthly thing, yeah, okay, cool. And then home sales, Valeria went on the market in 2016, thank you.
Thank you, Dana.
No problem, I wanted to keep it quick.
Awesome. Falling asleep prepared today. Does anybody have any committee reports? Safety. Going once. Okay. Any board comments, new business?
Yes, on Monday, the city of Peekskill did the zoning the amendment to their zoning to approve the homeless shelter to move to the potentially, if they decide to develop it, to move to the area by Lower South Street and Albany Post Road. So that was voted on by the Peekskill City Board on Monday. We're sharing here because it falls on our district. The zoning was approved, so it's now if someone decides that they want to build on that land, it's now an approved, the land is now an approved use.
Is the homeless shelter a family homeless shelter, or is it?
So there is, it's not built yet, so I'm not going to say what it is or isn't, but I will say that the approved shelter, I think, is like almost 4 times the size of the one they have now. in terms of square footage 3 times, maybe it's 7,500 square feet, it's going to like
Yeah.
21,000 square feet or something. And I believe it will be a family shelter, is the improvement that they're going for. Which, yeah. And also it impacts enrollment in such a way that the state pays, right? I mean, Joe can probably speak to it better. I think if the students, when a student becomes homeless, they are given the option in New York State to maintain enrollment in the district in which they were last a resident. So let's say somebody was living in Poughkeepsie and they just, or whatever, and they decided to come here. They were living in Yonkers and they end up coming to the homeless shelter that's located in our district. The state gives the family the option to bus the kid back to the home school, or they have the right as well to re-enroll in the district that they are now going to be a resident. The question, I think,
We also have to make sure that part of that homeless, because I'm the liaison, is that it's in specific amounts of distance. For example, we have students from Peekskill that are homeless that may go back to Peekskill, or they can choose to come here. But if they are from, let's say, Poughkeepsie, I don't know how far away that is, and so geographically challenged.
it's far,
Yes, it's more than 59 miles. They cannot
no.
come here.
maybe not.
So,
Not
so
that-
it's 59 miles, so we have to remember that. So we could be taking kids anywhere. We are required to go and get them and bring them back if they left our district. But if they're coming into the district, if their district is in the city, they may not have the option of going back to the city. They would come to us. So we want to be really careful in making sure those regulations, because that could be a huge impact either way.
And I want to be careful, the conversation, I want to be careful that I'm not speaking out of line. The conversation I had with the existing director of that homeless shelter, maybe a couple months ago, said their current program does not include children. Now, I don't know what the process is if they try to include children, but at that point, before the zoning was approved, they did not anticipate being a shelter with children, but that may change. Could change.
I don't know the answer. So
Yeah.
she answered you in a way that the shelter currently has no kids, but she also projected that she did not intend to introduce kids. I don't think that's, I think that was one of their selling points, with the opportunity to make it a family shelter. So I'm curious how she answered you. Not necessarily your interpretation. I think the amendment that they filed, or whatever the document's called, was for a family shelter.
And we don't really have family shelters around here.
I'm sorry?
We don't really have any family. I'm sorry, this would be the first one. We have one in White Plains and we have an overnight in Peekskill, so they can
Which is
spend.
adult only.
No, we've had families stay there. So they would stay the night and come back.
At
Now,
the
maybe it's a certain age, but we've had kids that are in the overnight there. They have to pack up and take everything and leave. So White Plains has the whole family gamut. They can stay there. We transport kids constantly. But the one in Peekskill, it's, some of our kids have been there, and maybe it's an age restriction, so don't quote me on that, okay? But they pack up and they leave. So this would be a benefit for a lot of our families that are displaced. So just keep that in mind.
And I think the other thing I read, they are trying to remove the time constraint. I think the current shelter has a limit on the number of days you can stay, making it transitional or transient housing or something. I don't know the word, so bear with me. But I think the amendment that was filed for this shelter to be relocated there, well, this was just a zoning change to put a shelter there.
Yeah.
Now the next step is, what type of shelter are they going to build? And I believe this one was, I don't believe they were willing or they were required to put a definitive number of days, which almost makes it no longer a shelter, but rather just housing that is subsidized or paid for directly by the state without you having to ever leave.
We'll certainly follow up.
Anything else? All right, yes, I have one more. So last year you had the town of Portland come and kind of present some
Business
development, most of which did not come to fruition.
Or most of which was in the town, but not in the district.
Well, there was some in our town that hasn't come to fruition, and then some of that was outside of our school district. About half of it came, I think, based on my memory.
But can we see if they could come back again?
Sure.
And give us an update, especially on specifically our district.
Our district, sure.
Yeah, I think that would be a good place. Very quick before anybody else has any other thoughts.
Can I have a motion to close the meeting? Have a second? All in favor? Aye.